Good morning, motivators. Taren here. Sleep expert Matthew Walker once said that sleep is probably the #1 legal performance enhancing drug that most athletes are ignoring. Now, I know that this is in fact likely true because I came across a survey that was put up on YouTube last week that showed that 53%, let's be honest, we all give ourselves a little bit of grace on that, so probably more than 53% of the people who took this survey, which was a huge amount of athletes, said that they get less than 7 hours sleep. This means that the majority of you probably watching aren't getting enough sleep. Today we're going to talk about how much sleep athletes should actually get. You're going to be surprised about this. How little they actually get, how to get more sleep, and what happens if you can't actually get more sleep. Because let's face it, we all have to be realistic with ourselves. We can't just spend all day sleeping. How do you know if what you're getting is enough?
My name is Taren Gazelle. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company Motive offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today.
So that quote at the start from Matthew Walker was legitimate. That book is a fantastic read. It's actually a really good listen as an audiobook because Matthew Walker has a fantastic voice. I experienced that quite a number of years ago when I was going down the path of, well, I'm prepared to sacrifice sleep so that I can get in more training before work. And I was getting about 6.5 hours of sleep, and I thought, hey, I can deal with this, have a coffee, get off to training. And I was just flat. I wasn't really making a whole lot of progress with the training. I wasn't feeling great. And then one weekend I went, you know what? I'm just going to sleep in and enjoy myself, make sure that I just sleep as long as I possibly could. I got only about 8.5 hours for a couple days in a row, but bam, Monday morning I woke up feeling like I was on drugs. And I went to some group rides and I actually won some sprints against people that I couldn't even draft off of the week before. My experience with sleep was so incredibly valuable that for the next couple of years, as I made my half Ironman time a half hour faster, 35 minutes faster, did my first Ironman in under 10 hours, which I never thought that I would ever be able to do, I was making sure that I just slept as late as I could, which averaged about 7.5, 8 hours of sleep, and I wasn't able to make progress prior to getting that amount of sleep. So how much sleep do we actually need? Well, I went into the studies about this, and there's links to all of these studies in the description below, and you can look this one up. This one said that generally the number is about 7 to 9 hours to get adequate physiological and psychological recovery following training. And then we go further down, we see elite athletes who train 4 to 6 hours a day may require between 10 and 12 hours of sleep per night. Now remember that survey that I had at the start? Even the 7 hours, just the baseline minimum recommendation of 7 hours, most people aren't getting. And when we do consultations with athletes who are sometimes just feeling like they're spinning their wheels and going like, I'm getting in all the training, but I just feel flat, or I'm getting injured and I can't figure out what it is, one of the first questions that we ask is, how much sleep do you get? And I can actually tell you anecdotally about 90% of the people who aren't making progress and are spinning their wheels are getting about 6 hours of sleep per night. Like most often, they aren't getting enough sleep, and that's the reason that they aren't making progress. What this study goes on to say is that, in fact, elite athletes tend to actually get less than the general population. And in my experience, that's because people work really, really hard, beat up their hormones, and that beat up hormone system ends up creating a little bit of sleep disturbance. So that actually compounds the fact it's this vicious cycle of you train harder, but then you can't recover from it, so your hormones get worse, and then you can't recover from it because you can't sleep as much, and it becomes this terrible vicious cycle. So how do we combat that? Well, that's where I found this second study, and these ones I really love because this is a meta-analysis. This is a study of a bunch of studies, and this one, again, linked in the description below. This study has a whole bunch of studies that it also looks to that you can go and root through if you want. The general consensus is more sleep is better, particularly for athletes. But the thing down here that I really liked is it looked at all of the factors associated with healthy sleep hygiene. These were the top 10 recommendations that we'll share with you. Don't go to bed until you are sleepy. Don't just lie in bed because that's your time. Have a regular bedtime routine and ritual to help your body relax and prepare your body for bed. Try to get up at the same time every morning, including weekends and holidays. Try to get a full night's sleep every night, avoiding naps during the day. If you must nap, limit your nap to 1 hour and avoid a nap after 3 p.m. That's ending after 3 p.m. Use the bed for sleep and funky business only, not for other activities such as TV, computer, or phone use. Avoid caffeine if possible. If you must use caffeine, avoid it after lunch. Avoid alcohol if possible. Now you might say, well, I sleep better after a few drinks. You pass out better, but you're not actually sleeping better. Do not smoke cigarettes or nicotine ever. Consider avoiding high-intensity exercise right before bed. Extremely intense exercise may raise cortisol, the stress levels, which impairs sleep. And make sure that your bedroom is quiet, as dark as possible, and a little on the cool side rather than warm, somewhere around 60 to 70 Fahrenheit. So we all know that it's really easy just to say these things and to say you have to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep and more is always better, but I want to give you some actual tools to figure out if you are getting enough. First, as a baseline, 7 hours is the absolute minimum amount that you want. If you're sleeping less than that, I have never seen a person that slept less than that and actually performed very well. I've spent a lot of time with pro athletes and almost all of them are superhuman sleepers, sleeping about 9 to 11 hours, getting in that right amount of sleep that they all need. So 7 as a baseline, but one thing that I would say is just because you're sleeping 7 or 7.5 hours doesn't mean check, hey, you're good, you can do absolutely anything you want, and you're never going to get injured, you're never going to be overtrained. Think about it in terms of, let's say you ran 50 miles every single day, but you slept 7.5 hours every night. You'd still probably get banged up. So the protocol that I like to use with our athletes is HRV. And there's this study where the association of sleep duration and quality with heart rate variability and blood pressure shows that the more sleep you get, the more your heart rate variability rises, which is what you want. What you can do with this is, we've talked about this at length in another video that will be linked in one of these videos over here on the right, is by tracking your HRV and noticing if your 7-day rolling average dips under your 30-day rolling average. And we'll have a link in the description below to a spreadsheet that you can download for free where you can track all this with an Oura Ring, with a Whoop strap, or with just a app on your phone called HRV for training. You just put in your daily HRV, and if you start trending down and that 7-day average dips under your 30-day average, you need a little bit more rest. You need to either lighten up on your training load, or you need to lighten up on the amount of stress that you get throughout the day. And by using those two barometers of the 7 to 9 hours per day, and then monitoring your HRV, you're setting yourself up for the highest likelihood of getting your training balance right. Because I can't just say, well, you need to get 7.5 hours and that's going to be good. Your body is going to tell you what's good. I can tell you 7 hours is basically the bare minimum that I've ever seen work for people, but then you have to start fine-tuning all the life balance stuff, and I find that HRV is really helpful for that. Thank you for watching, Motivators. If you're looking for a training plan that incorporates these methods that is as good as a one-on-one coach but as inexpensive as doing it yourself, check out our Motive training app that covers triathlons, running races, duathlons, swim runs, and cycling events. There's a link in the description below where you can check out your customized training plan for free. Also, if you'd rather listen to these tips, we also publish these videos in podcast format on the Taren's Motive Method podcast, so you can check that out. And if you don't want to do either of those things, but you found this video helpful, hit us up with a virtual high five by smashing the like button below. Later, motivators.